I was tremendously impressed by Errol Spence's performance here against Danny Garcia. He outboxed him, he outpunched him, he outthought him, he outmaneuvered him, he overpowered him, and is it too far to say he beat him up? He certainly marked him up en route to a 12-round unanimous decision. But the reason I'm so impressed is because he came back from a terrible car accident. And you never know how somebody's body is going to be coming back from a situation like that. I know they said there was no broken bones and what have you, but they can be neurological issues and there can be muscle issues, nerve issues, which are sometimes undetected. But I don't want to say Errol Spence was 100% in there. In fact, he said himself that he had a lot of ring rust and what have you, and he felt tired at the end of the fight. Even if he was only 70% or 80%, that's clearly still very good in terms of performing at world level, because I don't think anybody's dominated Danny Garcia the way that he did in there. So tremendously impressed by the way Errol Spence came back. And he said for his next fight, he's going to be 100% or 110% for that one. So is Errol Spence as good as he was prior to the crash? I would say right now, no. But it certainly looks like he could get back to that level again from what I saw here tonight. Now, in the opening round, the first thing I noticed is that Errol Spence, to me, looked a bit more skinny than he was pre-crash. He's always been kind of a slender, wiry type of figure, but here he looked even more wiry and even more slender. So I don't know if he's lost a bit of muscle mass there, maybe in his upper body or certain parts of his upper body. I'm not sure, but he just looked a little more skinny to me than he used to. Now with Danny Garcia, he's never been a pressure fighter. He tends to start slow typically. And, you know, despite those things, I felt like he should have tried to test Errol Spence early. Again, he's not a pressure fighter. He's not a fast starter. But given what Spence was coming back from, he should have tried to test him a bit early, try and see what he had, try and see how his body reacted, put Spence on his heels a little bit, get a drop on him, maybe. Because, again, when a guy's coming back from those kind of injuries, you want to make him doubt himself, if anything. But Danny Garcia was cautious. You know, he boxed this typical fight, really. He was cautious from the opening bell, and he allowed Errol Spence to get comfortable. He allowed Errol Spence to get into a rhythm and into a groove. And that was a mistake, a tactical mistake by Danny Garcia. Again, he isn't a pressure fighter. He's not a guy that normally jumps on people early. That is asking him to do something which is kind of out of character for Danny Garcia. But even his dad was telling him to do it. Angel knew that that was the way to get to Errol Spence, is to jump on him, you know, to stay with him in the pocket. But evidently, he felt the physical strength and the punching power of Errol Spence in the pocket, and he decided, you know what, it's a bit too much for me. And so he stayed, for the most part, on the back foot, moving around. When he did decide to come forward, that's when he usually had his most success, when he actually went for it. I mean, in the final round, far too little too late, I think it was in the last 30 seconds, he started going at Errol Spence, and he looked like he was going to have a bit of success there. He needed to do that much earlier on in the fight. I mean, he needed to do that, truth be told. Maybe not quite that reckless, because he was fairly reckless in the last round, in the last, whatever it was, 20 seconds of the final round. Maybe not quite that reckless, but he needed to have that kind of energy, that kind of assertiveness in the first round, I felt, Danny Garcia, if he was going to give himself any serious chance of winning. But yeah, alas, it wasn't to be. Errol Spence got into his groove. He did take his foot off the gas late in the fight, and I think that was down to the ring rust, you know, being out the ring for whatever it is, a year and a half. So he doesn't have the same fight fitness right now as he did last time he fought against Sean Porter. But that will come, you know, the more he's active and what have you. I'm assuming anyway that should come. So yeah, mightily impressed by Errol Spence. Tremendous to be able to come back from that horror crash. I mean, he's just incredibly fortunate to even be alive today after a crash like that. Most people don't survive something like that. He not only survived, but has come back to fight again at elite level as a welterweight. And it looks like business as usual. Remarkable stuff from Errol Spence. Maybe you should change his name to the Miracle Man rather than the Truth. Now, Terence Crawford was in attendance, and that's the fight we all want to see. But at the moment, it looks like there's a lot of politics in that situation, so probably not going to happen anytime soon. Therefore, they're surely going to look to match Errol Spence against who? Manny Pacquiao? Keith Thurman, maybe? Wherever he's at the moment. I know Keith Thurman's been calling Errol Spence out recently, and Errol Spence has been saying, well, I called you out back in the days and you didn't want to give me an opportunity. Why should I give you an opportunity now? Basically. So, I don't know. They've got plenty of welterweights there at PBC. So let's see who Errol Spence decides to fight next. Who would you guys like to see Errol Spence fight next? And let me know what you thought about his performance. I know there's going to be at least some who think that it wasn't a particularly impressive display because there are always people who have unrealistic expectations. For me, given what Errol Spence has been through by way of the crash and the layoff, I think that was a tremendous performance. I'm mightily impressed by that. So, and as far as Danny Garcia, yeah, he hasn't managed to beat any of the champions at welterweight. And is there any possibility for him to move down to 140? I know it's not something that usually goes well for older fighters when they decide to move back down to an old weight division at the latter stages of their career. But where else could Danny Garcia go from here? You know? Maybe a rematch with Keith Thurman, because Keith Thurman might not be what he used to be. Perhaps he can get revenge over him. But it's kind of hard to see what Danny Garcia's next step will be. So let me know what you guys think about that as well. And yeah, just overall, good performance. The same confident, physically strong, assertive, smart fighter. Not 100% yet, but looks like he can get there. Those are my thoughts on it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm out. If you'd like to access all my boxing content advert-free and enjoy the convenience of listening via a podcast app with the option to download in high-quality MP3, then consider joining me on Patreon. In addition to the aforementioned perks, you'll also gain access to exclusive weekly live stream Q&A sessions and hangouts, as well as uncensored, no-holds-barred uploads, which are too blue for YouTube. This includes my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Boxing Extra. There's no contract, there's no commitment, it's only £2.50 a month, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of hardcore boxing enthusiasts by signing up with me here on Patreon today.